Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton,
I'm Bob Scarborough.
and we are the
Uh,
FAIRtax Guys.
hey, I got my banner back.
Yes, I see you are back out from your secret, undisclosed location in rural Virginia and back at the radio station today.
Right. Oh, working hard as usual. And when we record these programs, we usually do it on a Friday morning. So the day is pretty much set for cleaning up and then leaving early. So it's always good to be with you all. And thank you so much for your support of the Fair Tax. And please pass the word along to your friends and neighbors, your neighbors' friends, your friends' neighbors, and let them know how important it is, especially during this trying time of finance in the world and especially in our country. The fair tax will help supercharge the economy here for all Americans and through the entire through us, through the United States, through the entire world will be benefiting from the fair tax at that point.
Indeed. Please share the videos on your social media. That helps us a lot. And let's say we will actually, before we dig into Congress.gov, we've got a couple of things. Of course, we want to remember again that our special live Fair Tax Power Radio show from the radio station WTOB up there in Winston-Salem will be on October the 19th, 8 a.m. That's a Sunday morning. So if you are in the Winston-Salem area, you can get the over-the-air signal. That's fine. If you're not, WTOB 980.com. You can stream it anywhere in the world. Hope to see you there. And of course, we will be videoing that and playing back that on our regular podcast sometimes, so folks can see that as well. But if you want to talk to the Fair Tax Live, that's it, October 19th, 8 a.m. And that's what we'll do. And we are coming up on episode, believe this, number 500. We have almost made 500 episodes of FAIRtax Power Radio. Look at the calendar. Number 500 will stream on the first Tuesday in December, a couple of months from now. And of course, I'm going to be on a cruise ship at that time, so we're going to get ahead but we're working on something special for episode number 500. I'm going to see if we can get Steve Hayes and Jade Wally to join us for that program, and that should be good. But that's coming up on the first Tuesday in December. Okay, let's get to work here on FAIRtax Power Radio, and as always, we will be taking a look at what the Congress critters are trying to do to the tax code. And if you put the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes in the search function there at congress.gov, select just legislation in the current Congress, you get back 1,184 hits on that search. And at the top of today's list is H.R. 4949, which is called the Apprenticeships for Small Business Act of 2025, sponsored by Representative Josh Harder of California District 9. And you dig into that thing and you see that this is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code. Oh, would you look at this? Another tax credit to establish a credit for certain employers of qualifying career and technical education students. So if you have a business and you hire one of these students who is pursuing a career and technical education, educational path, the representative here wants to give you another tax credit for that. Isn't that cool?
I love it. Why not use the tax code for, deciding what people should or shouldn't do as far as how complicated can it get?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to have the brain the size of one of those aliens on Star Trek to be able to keep up with all the changes in the tax code.
Now, do you want me to really answer that question? Why should you use the tax code to do all this stuff? The short, no, you shouldn't. You should make that stuff self-standing bills or legislation that is, accomplishes the same purpose. Just make it a standalone bill and pass it. Don't bury it in the tax code where nobody but the FAIRtax guys can find it. Here
That's
we
right.
go. Let's go. HR 4943 is our next one. This is the Safeguarding Trust in Our Politics Act. Representative Claudia Tenney of New York, and HR 4943. Dig into that little jewel here, and you will find that it says a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to get this prohibit certain tax exempt organizations from providing funding or election administration. Certain tax exempt organizations. Now, I would think churches would be at the top of that list. We're not going to let those guys provide any money for election administration. Now, isn't that crazy? Wouldn't it be nicer to just kind of get rid of all of that junk, not even have tax exempt organizations in the first place because there's no tax to be exempt from, at least no income tax to be exempt from, and let these folks just do whatever they want with their own money?
Gosh, you think they'd let us do that at some point in time? That we, I got $1 in my pocket. I'd like to go put that towards a soft drink at some point in time.
Oh, that reminds me.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I got to crack open my cheer wine here. Oh, I trimmed my fingernails last night and I can't get under. There we go. There it goes. Oh,
Cheer
that's
wine,
good. Product
of North Carolina.
Thank goodness for North Carolina that has cheer wine. Okay, let's keep going. HR 4933, 4933. This is the Research and Development Tax Credit Expansion Act of 2025 from Representative, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right, Neguse, 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 Joe, however you pronounce that. Let's see, he's from Colorado District 2. And his bill says he wants to amend the Internal Revenue Code. Let's scroll down here to see it. To expand eligibility and increase simplification of the research credit for certain small businesses. So there we go, another tax credit that they want to mess with.
Just it never stops. It makes it easy for them to collect money for reelection. And that probably is the primary reason that there's all this forestalling of passing the fair tax. That's
yes.
Yours truly's opinion.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties of the fair tax. You don't have all of these stupid tax credits that some people get and some people don't. You don't pick who gets a break and who gets a penalty. You just treat everybody the same way at the cash register with a fair tax, and it is much, much, much better. Now, here's an interesting one. This is from the Senate side. This is S 2681 from, I believe you may have heard of this guy, Chuck Schumer, senator from New York.
Yeah, I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, his particular bill here, if I can scroll down into the text, they've actually got text here I can read. He wants to amend the Internal Revenue Code to extend the availability of certain clean energy credits. Now, again, you talk about where the title of the bill having nothing to do with what it actually does. They titled it the Lowering Electric Bills Act, and it's actually trying to extend the availability of certain clean energy credits. No comment, huh?
Clean, I mean, what are we talking about with clean energy? Are we going to clean energy or is it clean energy? My thinking is that, let the market decide what it wants as far as, alternative sources of fuel and for fuel and so on.
Okay.
Why does it have to be encouraged or discouraged by what's being put into into law somewhere or encouraged by what we're talking about here today?
Okay, one more. S 2664, the Skilled Workforce Act, sponsored by Senator John Ossoff of Georgia. And you get into this little jewel. That's one thing you got to drill down here to find it. It says to amend the Internal Revenue Code, oh mercy, to establish, would you believe, another tax credit. This is the Qualified Workforce Training Project credit.
Workforce.
You have the Qualified Workforce Training Project credit.
That doesn't. It doesn't make any sense at all to me. I mean, you're going to train people. You got the tech schools that train you how to work on cars and motors and all the things that a tech school will do. So is this part of does this benefit those technical education schools that
I don't know. I mean, you don't understand the tax code. I'm shocked.
oh, I mean, I'm still halfway through publication 17. I keep flushing it down the toilet by accident.
Oh, mercy. Okay, well, let's move on here. That's what the Congress critters are up to for this week. We'll look into more of that craziness next week here on
Yeah,
Fair Tax Power Radio. But for right now, I want to do a little myth busting if I can. Can we do
sure.
that? I love to watch the Mythbusters. Those guys are really cool. But I want to address something that I see coming up over and over and over and over again regarding the fair tax. I mean, we actually saw this when we dug into the what artificial intelligence has to say about the fair tax. And I get some advanced copies of Jim Bennett's Grassroots Quarter column. I help him, edit it for clarity and ease of reading. And he has written some columns that I don't think have been published yet, detailing what other fair tax volunteers have found when they went digging into AI about the fair tax. And so we'll see when those come out. But I see this on social media all the time. And it sounds plausible. It really does. But it's just not relevant to the fair tax. And of course, I'd like to think in most cases, what we're dealing with here is just honest ignorance of how the fair tax works. Though I would imagine there is some, dishonest misrepresentation along the line somewhere. And the argument I want to look at again is the one that says taxing consumption is innately biased against lower and middle income earners because low income earners spend a much larger percentage of their income than rich people do. And since it taxes spending, the fair tax is not fair because it would tax just about all of a poor family's income while taxing only a small portion of a rich family's income. Raise your hand if you've heard that one. Yeah.
I've heard it. And I've seen a lot of people fall for it. But when I see someone make the argument, the first thing that pops into my mind is just how fundamentally flawed the argument is. Now, think about it for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
In about 60 seconds now.
Well, let me have another swig of Cheerwine here while you're thinking.
The fair tax is not an income tax. It's not an income tax. Attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much or how little you make. The fair tax does not tax anyone's income. I understand the mindset that line of thinking comes into play. The income tax is so thoroughly ingrained in people's thinking that even when they're evaluating a system that doesn't tax income, they still think in terms of how much of someone's income is going to be taxed. It ain't that way. Doesn't happen.
Oh, mercy. And unfortunately, too, you've also got people who honestly believe that the primary function of a tax system, no matter what it is not so much to raise revenue for the government, but to sock it to those greedy, evil, oppressive rich people. In their minds, it's just not fair that some people make more than others and have more than others, and it's the government's job to step in and make things fair by confiscating a large chunk of what those evil rich people are stealing from those on the lower end of the economic spectrum. And unfortunately, there's no shortage of politicians who will vote for me and I'll give you a break and I'll make those rich people pay up big. I mean, you see that all the time.
Really, there's really not much we can do to reach people who have that belief. We at the fair tax movement, the volunteers and folks that are involved really need to focus our time and attention on clear thinking people who can see past the political rhetoric. A lot of folks watch TV, they hear a 30-second soundbite or 60, or they hear somebody else kind of downplaying it wherever they might be. People honestly can begin to evaluate what's the best way to fund the federal government. And when you drop the mindset of taxing income, you have to go all the way back to the very beginning and remember how the fair tax was born. It was a group a group of wealthy businessmen in Texas who had the financial resources to take care of it, to find out that best way other than income tax to fund the government. They commissioned a team of economists and gave them a single, simple instruction. Start with a clean sheet of paper. Design the very best tax collection system you can that raises the same amount of money for the government as the current income tax. And that's something that is a requirement, actually. If you're going to switch your method of revenue collection for the Treasury,
Yeah,
you,
well, obviously there are going to be a lot of different factors to consider when you try to figure out what the best tax system possible is. Because you got to acknowledge that regardless of whether you're taxing income or whether you're taxing consumption, taking money out of people's pockets does some damage to the economy because every dollar that's paid in taxes is one that can't be saved, can't be invested, or can't be used to generate economic activity by buying something. But I
correct.
think if you're going to evaluate the relative merits of a tax system, it's fair to say that a tax system that does minimal damage to the economy is better than one that does massive damage. And I think
Correct.
this is all going to tie in later, but for now, we're kind of getting away from the regular argument here that we wanted to get into. And that's the argument that the fair tax is unfair to poor people because poor people spend a greater percentage of their income than rich people do. And if you tax spending rather than income, you're going to disproportionately affect poor people while letting rich people keep a large chunk of their income tax free. All right, well, let's go to work on that.
Well, we already established that the fair tax doesn't tax income at all. I see the point. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't sound fair. A lot of people say, okay, well, yeah, okay, I'm going to get all this money that I've got to pay. Poor people are going to pay more. To say that the fair tax is going to affect 95% or more of what a poor family makes while touching only around 40% of what a rich family makes, that's not what happens with the fair tax. And this is where a lot of people miss the benefit of the prebate. Many low income earners pay no income tax because the income tax doesn't tax every dollar you make. The income tax has a standard deduction, and it also allows people to itemize deductions. In either case, whatever your deductions add up to is the amount of money you can make tax-free under the income tax. The only part of your income that is subject to being taxed is the part that exceeds your deductions.
Bingo, Kimosabe, you got it. Now, what a lot of people either don't understand or they choose to ignore is that the fair tax also has a standard deduction. Now, of
Correct.
course, because of the differences in how you administer an income tax versus a consumption tax, the mechanism for applying that standard deduction is different, but the effect is the same. With the income tax, I mean, you just add up all the money you make, subtract out your deductions, and then you pay tax on the difference. And, say somebody in the 15% tax bracket, they don't pay 15% of their total income. They pay 15% of their taxable income, i.e., the part of their income that exceeds their deductions, whether it's a standard deduction or itemized deductions, doesn't matter. But if you look at the amount of tax you pay and calculate that as a percentage of your total income and not just your taxable income, you're paying a lot. People in the 15% bracket are paying a lot less than 15%. And of course, if your deductions exceed your income, then every dollar you make is tax-free. You don't owe any tax at all. Now, on the other side of it, the fair tax standard deduction is called the family consumption allowance. Now, that is the amount of money, amount of your spending that is not subject to being taxed. It varies by household size. The government calculates it every year. So again, with the fair tax, every family is allowed to spend up to the poverty level for their household size tax free. That is their standard deduction with the fair tax.
That's right. As you mentioned, the mechanism for applying this standard deduction is different with the fair tax, but the principle is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
The income tax, you only pay tax on the part of your income that exceeds your deductions. With the fair tax, you only pay tax on the part of your spending that exceeds your family consumption allowance, otherwise known as the prebate. Now, it's just not practical to try to keep track of everyone's spending and start applying the tax only after spending rises above the family consumption allowance. So with the fair tax, you pay the tax at the cash register on every taxable purchase, but the tax you paid that you do not owe is refunded to you every month in the prebate. and you do not owe any fair tax on your spending up to the poverty level for your household size. No matter, everybody gets the prebate. Every
Everybody. It's based
so
on your household size, not on your income or anything else. But of course, we talked about the prebate here on a Fair Tax Power Radio just a couple of weeks ago. People continue to either misunderstand or intentionally mischaracterize it. Again, it is not an entitlement. It is not a universal basic income, as some people have tried to frame it. It is a tax refund. It is tax that you paid that you do not owe being refunded back to you. And this refund, that is the mechanism for implementing a standard deduction into the fair tax. Now, I've noticed that some people, they are just bound and determined to paint the fair tax as regressive and a bad deal for low income earners, but they just tend to gloss over the prebate, even if they mention it at all. They'll come up with something like, yeah, the fair tax has this rebate in it. It's supposed to offset the crushing burden that a 30% tax on everything you buy is going to impose on poor people, but it's not going to be enough. I mean, they just blow it off without really taking an honest look at how it works. That is incredibly dishonest, but they do it anyway. And that is what we're up against in a lot of cases. And that's why we continue to hound on it here on Fair Tax Power Radio.
Well, let's get back to the original claim that we need to take apart. And that's the claim that the fair tax is a bad deal because it taxes spending, and poor people spend a much greater percentage of their income than rich people do. Well, that part is true. Lower and middle income earners do indeed spend a greater percentage of their income than those earning 7 or 8 figures a year. But the fact that the fair tax does not tax every dollar a family spends is what blows that bogus claim out of the water.
Yeah, it's funny too. I mean, you never hear anybody talking about what a rotten deal that poor people are getting from the income tax. I mean, they understand if your income's low enough, it falls under the threshold where the tax begins to take effect. So a family with a low enough income pays no income tax. But they either honestly don't understand or they just dishonestly fail to mention that if the spending is low enough, it too falls under the threshold where the fair tax begins to take effect. That if your spending's low enough, you will pay zero fair tax out of your own pocket from your earnings. Every dime you pay is refunded to you in the prebate. And they never mention also that there's no such threshold for the federal payroll taxes. I mean, the fair tax eliminates those things, and everybody, rich or poor, pays 7.65% in federal payroll taxes, and that begins with the first dollar they earn.
Exactly. And let's look at two different families, one rich, one poor. The poor family makes a poverty level income, which in 2025 is $42,300 for a family of 4, 2 parents, 2 children. Let's say this family spends every dime they make, 0 savings, 0 invested. Every dime is spent on goods and services, new goods and services. With the fair tax rate inclusive, 23%. This family will pay $9,729 in fair tax at the cash register when they buy the things they need. Their annual prebate will be $9,729. Do you notice they're the same number? This family takes nothing, absolutely nothing, out of their earnings to pay the fair tax. So even though this family spends 100% of their income, their tax rate under the fair tax is 0. I mean, absolutely 0, because their earnings are no longer subject to federal payroll taxes with the fair tax.
Indeed. Now let's look at the other side of that. Family number 2 is also a family of 4, but they make $1,000,000 a year. Now, obviously, you get by on a lot less than that. So this family with the $1,000,000 income only spends 40% of it. Let's say $400,000. Now, at the 23% inclusive fair tax rate, this family will pay $92,000 in fair tax at the cash register if they spend $400,000. Now, same size family, so they get the same prebate, meaning that out of that $92,000 in fair tax that rich family pays, $82,271 comes out of their own pocket. I mean, so there it is in black and white. The poor family spends 100% of its income, pays 0 fair tax. The rich family spends only 40% of their income, and they pay over $82,000 in fair. Now, look me in the eye and tell me with a straight face that that's a rotten deal for the poor family. I mean, you just can't. Well, you can try, but you're going to look like an idiot trying to sell me that bill of goods. The percentage of a family's income that gets spent is irrelevant with the fair tax. So the next time somebody tries to tell you the fair tax is unfair to those who have to spend a high percentage of their income, I mean, just call BS on them, because that's exactly what they're trying to sell you.
Well, there's a rest of the story here. You said that family number two, the rich family, spends only 40% of their income. What happens to the other 60% for them?
Well, I would hope that some would be given to charity. But if you've got money that's not spent and it's not given away, I can only think of three things you can do with it. You can loan it to somebody, or you can save it, or you can invest it.
Correct. And therein lies a hidden beauty of the fair tax that I've been harping on for years. Economists all across the political spectrum will tell you that saving and investing is what drives a healthy economy. And of course, a healthy economy is good for people of all income levels. The income tax penalizes saving and investing. Interest that the bank pays you on your savings is taxable income. Dividends paid to stockholders are taxable. And of course, if you sell a capital asset like stocks, bonds, or real estate, you will pay capital gains tax on the profit you made from that investment and the sale of it. The fair tax encourages savings and investing. It applies only to retail sales. It does not touch saving and investing in any way, shape, or form. It encourages savings, folks. Remember that the team of economists that designed the fair tax was trying to develop the best tax system they could, one that would do the least amount of damage to the economy. They understood the negative impact an income tax has on the economy, which is why their best solution possible was a tax on consumption and not income.
Okay, so there you have it. I don't know how many more times we can beat on that before people get it through their heads that the amount of or actually the percentage of your income that you spend is, a non-factor. With a fair tax, the percentage of your spending that exceeds the poverty level is what counts with a fair tax. So if you have a poverty level income, you spend 100% of it, your fair tax rate is still going to be zero. And I tell you what, if I could just crack open people's heads and pour that knowledge in, I would do it. But we're going to have to wait till next week to do that, because we are slap out of time here again on FAIRtax Power Radio. Again, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing the videos, telling your friends and family about the fair tax. And so remember, hang on here for our special 500th episode coming up here in a couple of months on FAIRtax Power Radio. But until we meet again, we're going to have to wrap it up. I'm Bob Paxton.
Bob Scarborough.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So tell me how it works.
It's probably changed since the last time I saw it, but the short answer would be, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. Okay. Imagine bringing home everything you make. You don't get taxed for saving or accumulating wealth, and your boss doesn't get taxed more even if he pays you more.
Wow, see, that's amazing.
So the end result of all that is the cost of producing products and running a business goes down, so things cost less. And on top of all that, imagine every criminal, non-citizen, and under-the-table worker also paying taxes.
That's amazing.
That's the fair tax. We tax what you consume as you consume it, and that's it.